HOPECast Episode 5, E Energy. Burnout is grief in disguise. Hi, lovie. Welcome back to Wild Soul HOPECast. I'm Sharon Lee, and this is a space where we bring clarity to chaos and sovereignty to survival through hope, harness optimal positive energy, and through a deeper understanding of unconditional love in all its forms. This is where we gently uncover the lie about hope, the idea that it's passive, weak, or naive, and remember that true hope is embodied strength. Here, love doesn't require performance, and you are allowed to be exactly as you are. And now that we're here together, let's talk about energy. Not motivation, not productivity, not positive vibes only. Energy. The kind that runs your nervous system, the kind that fuels burnout, the kind that gets tangled in fear and ego and survival patterns. Today we're exploring why survival exhausts the soul and how balance restores it. If this is your first time here, I'm really glad you found your way in. And if you're returning, thank you for trusting this space again. That matters more than you know. This episode is not about pushing harder. It's not about fixing yourself, and it's definitely not about toxic positivity. It's about clarity and sovereignty, and clarity always begins in the body. Let's arrive. Inhale in. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. And let's do a body check-in. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your body know you don't have to hold anything up right now. You don't need to prove insight. You don't need to be strong. You don't need to make meaning yet. This is a space where presence matters more than performance. You don't have to agree with everything here. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Wisdom works best when it's invited, not forced. Some conversations are meant to be listened to slowly. If your body asks for a break, honor that. You can pause, breathe, and return when you're ready. Nothing here requires endurance. We hear the word burnout everywhere. Work burnout, caregiver burnout, emotional burnout, spiritual burnout. Burnout is what happens when you carry responsibility without support. When you hold it together for everyone else. When you override your own needs because now isn't the time. And if you're honest, you've probably told yourself that more than once. But burnout isn't laziness. It isn't weakness. And it isn't failure. Burnout is survival at the cost of yourself. It happens when the body and soul have carried too much for too long, without enough permission to feel, grieve, or rest. Burnout is grief that never got to exhale. Grief for who you had to be to survive. What you carried without help, what you postponed, quote unquote, until later, what you never fully allowed yourself to feel. Burnout is not collapse. It is communication. It is your nervous system whispering, and sometimes finally shouting, "This space is not sustainable anymore." And burnout is not a mindset problem. It is an energy problem. Energy isn't abstract or mystical here. It's biological. It's cellular. It's lived in the body. Burnout happens when your nervous system has been living in survival mode for too long. Not because you're weak, but because your system adapted beautifully to what it had to survive. And sometimes the adaptation just outlives the danger. Now here's the tender part. Under burnout is often fear. Not dramatic fear, not panic, quiet fear. Fear of being seen as weak. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of instability, of abandonment. Fear of slowing down. Fear doesn't always look like anxiety. Sometimes it looks like competence. It looks like being the strong one and the capable one, the one everyone depends on, the one that gets everything done. And you don't have to worry about it. It looks like the parent trying to give their child a perfect childhood because maybe yours wasn't. Fear becomes fuel beneath burnout. And when fear quietly runs the nervous system, rest feels unsafe. Stillness feels dangerous. Slowing down feels irresponsible, like you're about to fail some invisible exam. That quiet fear slowly exhausts both mind and body. The kind that says, if I stay on, I stay safe. And without gentle regulation, that quiet fear slowly exhausts both mind and body. If this feels familiar, you're not broken, you're patterned. Trauma doesn't only live in dramatic events. It lives in what your body couldn't process at the time. Trauma is not defined by what happened. It's defined by what overwhelmed your system. When something exceeds our capacity, the nervous system goes into protection. Energy gets held. The body stays alert, guarded, or numb. And burnout happens when alert never turns off. Responsibility never softens. Rest never feels fully safe. Your nervous system is not your enemy. It has one job: to keep you alive. It learned patterns that look like personality: fight, urgency, irritability, control; flight, busyness, overworking; freeze, numbness, shutdown; fawn, people-pleasing, overgiving. Burnout often comes from cycling between push and collapse. Push, collapse, push again, collapse again. That rhythm alone is exhausting. We were taught that rest comes after everything is done. But regulation comes before clarity. When the body doesn't feel safe, the mind can't think clearly. When energy is depleted, willpower won't save you. Compassion will. Your nervous system doesn't understand productivity. It understands safety. And many of us learned early, staying on is safer than slowing down. That's where ego steps in. When we hear the word ego, we imagine arrogance. But ego, at its core, is protection. It's the personality structure your nervous system built to survive. And most of us tend to lean toward one of two survival patterns: the bully ego or the victim ego. Neither are villains, neither are flaws. Both are intelligent adaptations. The bully ego says, I will stay powerful so I can't be hurt. The victim ego says, I will stay small so I can't be attacked. They look opposite, but biologically, they are siblings. Both are nervous system responses to perceived threat. The bully ego lives in fight and overfunctioning. The victim ego lives in freeze, fawn, or collapse. Both keep the body in response mode, bracing, proving, managing perception, overgiving, withdrawing. And when activation never meets restoration, burnout becomes inevitable. This isn't about personality labels. It's about physiology. Ego aligns with sympathetic activation, mobilizing, doing, pushing. Soul aligns with parasympathetic restoration, repairing, integrating, settling. When activation and restoration move in rhythm, the body thrives. But many of us mastered activation. We were never taught restoration. Research supports what many of us feel in our bones. Chronic stress increases inflammatory load. Emotional suppression impacts immune regulation. Prolonged nervous system activation affects the body over time, not as blame, but as relationship. And here's the gentle truth. The ego prefers intensity because intensity feels powerful, but the soul prefers steadiness. The soul feels strongest in calm presence, in safe attachment, in unconditional love, not because it's soft, but because it's regulated. And regulation allows the stress cycle to complete. For years, I lived in high-functioning survival, capable, productive, strong, and always bracing. My ego was doing its job beautifully, but my nervous system rarely restored, and my body eventually reflected that. Inflammation, weight gain, immune responses, arthritis. Let me say this responsibly. Autoimmune conditions are complex at best. Genetics matter, environment matters. Illness is never a moral failure. But chronic nervous system activation increases inflammatory load. It's well supported. When I began integrating instead of performing strength, when I softened the bully ego and strengthened the collapsed parts, when I allowed unconditional love, real embodied safety to regulate my system, my body changed. Not because I eliminated my ego, because I have a pretty big one, but because I befriended it. The bully ego softened. The victim ego found strength. Both became conscious instead of automatic. The goal isn't ego elimination, it's rhythm. Activation when necessary, restoration afterward. Boundaries without rage, softness without self-abandonment. That is sovereignty. That is nervous system literacy. That is survival becoming wholeness. Most of us oscillate between these two survival patterns unconsciously. The one who dominates at work may collapse in love. The one who feels powerless in relationships may control their environment. Burnout, perhaps, when survival becomes identity. Sovereignty begins when we notice the pattern gently. There's my overfunctioning. There's my collapsing. No shame, just awareness. And that awareness is regulation. That pause is power. That is where the soul re-enters the room. The soul doesn't need to dominate. And it doesn't need to disappear. It can stand tall without overpowering. It can soften without self-abandoning. And that is the movement from survival to sovereignty. All right. How are we doing so far? Are you still with me? All right. Now, let's bring hope into this. Not as a slogan, not as a bumper sticker, not as a just stay positive, but as something biological, something embodied, something usable. In the HOPE method, E is for energy, not excitement, not motivation, not mood. Energy is capacity. Energy is how much life force is available to you right now. How safe your body feels in this very moment. How much actual choice do you have? That's it. Energy isn't how inspired you are, it's how resourced you are. And this changed everything for me, because for most of my life, I thought I had a discipline problem. I thought if I could just try harder, push a little more, organize a little differently, control a lot better, I could outwork burnout. But here's the truth. When energy is depleted, willpower does not work. Discipline fails, affirmations fall flat, motivational quotes feel insulated, and shame just gets louder. But compassion works because compassion lowers that threat. And lowering threat restores energy. That's sovereignty. Sovereignty begins the moment you stop arguing with your nervous system. Let's take a minute and define this clearly. Energy is not mystical. It's measurable in the body. When your nervous system feels safe, digestion works better. Immune function stabilizes. Hormones regulate. Clarity always returns. When your nervous system feels threatened, muscles tighten, breathing shortens, inflammation increases, thinking narrows. That's not spiritual language. That's physiology. So when I say hope rebalances energy, I mean it brings body back into regulation. Harnessing energy means noticing. I am activated. Or, I see, I am collapsing. And instead of judging yourself, you restore choice. And choice is the bridge between survival and sovereignty. It helps you choose what you're going to eat that day. It helps you say no when you know you should. And it helps you stop overgiving of yourself. There was a season in my life, and you'll recognize this if you've read my book, where I was high functioning to the point of invisibility. I was productive, responsible, reliable, capable, and completely exhausted. But I didn't call it exhaustion. No. No, I called it being strong. I called it doing what needed to be done. I called it, this is just a season I'm in. If I just push a little harder. That's what I called it. But what I didn't realize was that I had confused control with stability. I thought if I held everything together, everything would stay together. But here's what happened. My body started whispering. No, it wasn't whispering anymore. It was full on yelling. joint pain, inflammation, weight gain, fatigue that sleep didn't fix. And instead of listening, I overrode, because somewhere deep in my wiring, rest equaled danger. If I slowed down even a little bit, something might just fall apart. Something might not get done that needs to be done. Somebody might just be disappointed. And here's the truth that humbled me. The only thing falling apart in this whole entire scenario was me. That was my winter season of energy. And in winter, energy isn't meant to expand. It's meant to conserve. But I was trying to bloom in December. No wonder I burned out. This is something I teach inside the Seasons of Hope. Energy moves in cycles. Winter, we need to conserve and reflect and restore and journal more. Spring brings excitement and you initiate things gently. In summer, we expand, we create, we build, we grow. In autumn, we evaluate and we release and let go. Burnout often happens when we try to live in summer year-round. Constant expansion, constant productivity, constant output. But your nervous system is seasonal. Your body is rhythmic. And optimal energy is not maximum energy. It's regulated energy. It's appropriate energy. It's enough energy for the season you're in. Positive energy isn't forced optimism. It's available life force. It's the quiet sense that your body isn't bracing. Let's take a minute and talk about something tender. Many people burn out not because they lack strength, but because love became tied to survival. Love meant being needed, being useful, being indispensable, being the strong one, being the one who did all the work to make everyone else's life easier. That's what us people that get abandoned by our mothers do. Something I learned. My mother didn't intentionally abandon me. It just happened that way. And I love her anyways. But it doesn't mean the child inside me has forgotten that. I've had to learn how to not feel abandoned by the simplest things. But somewhere along the way, I learned through all of that abandonment that if I am necessary, I am safe. But here's the thing, when love becomes performance, energy drains. Compassion without boundaries becomes martyrdom. Martyrdom of all things. Strength without softness becomes violence towards yourself. Responsibility without rest becomes deep-rooted resentment. Burnout hides inside good qualities. That's why it's so dang sneaky. You're praised for it. And hope doesn't remove your strength. It balances it. And in the spirit of regulating energy, not fixing yourself, let's pause for a moment. Notice where your body is supported right now. Your feet, your seat, your back. I'm Dr. Seuss all of a sudden. Take a slow inhale. Let the exhale out really loud and proud and long. Take a slow inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Longer exhale signals safety. You can also put your hand on your heart and one on your belly and breathe through your stomach. That one works really well as well. There's all kinds of techniques to breathing. I've only learned a few, and so I don't want to go too far into that. But I do know that a good breath fixes a lot in our internal systems. Now gently ask yourself, what is my body asking for right now? Not what it needs forever, just right now. Does it need water? Does it need food? Does it need silence, movement, a boundary, a phone call you need to cancel, or 5 minutes without solving one single dang thing? Listening is enough. You don't need to solve your entire life in this moment. Walking back from burnout is not about becoming better. It's about becoming safer inside your body. Regulation looks like slowing without guilt, resting without collapse, acting without urgency, choosing without pressure. That is healing at the nervous system level. You're entitled to a nap when you're tired. Don't feel guilty. You're entitled to a snack when you're hungry. Treat your body with reverence and greatness. Give it the support it needs without shame or guilt. Let's reclaim the word positive in this very moment. Positive doesn't mean pretending. We've been through this. Positive doesn't mean bypassing pain. Positive means aligned. It means honest. It means your energy matches your truth. Real positivity is discernment. It says, this is too much, or I need support, or this season is winter. Burnout is not the end. It's the threshold. It's your system asking for a new relationship with energy. Burnout often comes right before the pause, right before a threshold, right before you stop forcing. And in the next episode, we're going to be talking about what comes after awareness. Not pushing, not fixing, not chasing, just waiting without forcing. Because here's what I've learned. Sometimes the most regulated thing you can do is stop trying to make something happen and just be. That's not collapse. That's trust. And trust requires energy. So, before we close, let's anchor this thought. Feel your feet on the floor or your hands on a seat. Take a breath and lengthen your exhale. And out loud or in your mind, name one thing your body is asking for. No fixing, just listening. You don't need to solve your life tonight. You just need to stop overriding yourself. Burnout is not your enemy. It's your nervous system asking for balance. And hope teaches us how to listen, not with force, but with wisdom. Clarity doesn't come from forcing yourself forward. It comes from honoring what your energy has been carrying. Because sometimes all you have left is hope. And sometimes hope is enough. Talk soon.